Welcome to the Homeschool Together podcast. Where one working mom and a stay-at-home dad help you navigate the nuts and bolts of the growing and dynamic world of homeschooling.
With a focus on early learners, like me.
All the ins and outs of building and maintaining your homeschool life.
Homeschool.
Find out tips and tricks to make things like this easier.
I'm reading.
And ultimately, enjoy educating your kids. And what's that last thing?
Have fun together. Did I do good, Daddy?
Yeah, you did, sweetie. Good job. Hello and welcome to Homeschool Together. I am the Supremes and this is Diana Ross next to me here. And
I'm not going to say what time it is at night, y'all.
It is 10:58 and we just finished a wonderful interview. But before we get into any of the details there, head down into the show notes and number one thing, do one of two things. Support the podcast if you can. Keeps us ad-free, keeps us rolling, keeps us doing things, as well as subscribing to our YouTube channel, which is growing like Mount Vesuvius. Hopefully one day we'll erupt in virality. Hopefully not in a bad way. Anyway.
So one of the best ways that you can support the podcast, we have a secular curriculum selector down there. You can see all kinds of secular options that are, whatever subject and whatever grade, quote unquote, that you need for your child. Or, if you just already intend to purchase something, just use a link through there. If you purchase something from All About Reading or one of these other ones, then we get a little affiliate money. And as you say, it keeps the lights on. So we appreciate your support. It's a great way to help out the podcast.
So today we are doing one of our favorite things to do, and we've been hearing a lot of great feedback about these styles of episodes because we know there's a lot of first-time homeschoolers out there and some early homeschoolers, and you guys like to hear from other people doing it. Now, it's great to hear about experts who've got 900 years of homeschooling experience across 12 children, and they are superstars and amazing, but a lot of times we want to demystify those early homeschooling years, and today we have a first-year homeschoolers. One of our favorite things to do is talk to first-year people and talk to them how they survived and had fun and jumped into it, and today we have that with Becky Brown.
Yeah, this was a really great interview. I love these so much because, it's homeschooling for the first time. It can be scary and you're not sure how to begin and how do you research and how do you start? And this is all just focused right on the beginning. As you say, not folks who are established with a bunch of years of experience.
And those people are wonderful.
No, and we need those people, right? Because we have to grow into those people. So, but to hear from folks who are just starting it, what were their challenges and what were the things that inspired them or where they started their research, concerns they had. And we discussed all of that with Becky. She has done her first year of homeschooling with her 6-year-old son, and she had a lot of great advice to provide. And I think some of the things she talked about are a lot of the same concerns that other folks have when they're starting out homeschooling.
Absolutely, especially some of the concerns around socialization, and we talked a lot about that as being her number one concern, especially when they first started homeschooling, talking that with her spouse, working through those challenges and those fears around homeschooling and what she planned to do this year that has just passed, and also what is coming up in the future as she tries to find those social opportunities for her children. She has she has the 6-year-old, but she also has another child coming up as well, so that she's already starting to think about, what is life for both of these children in the homeschooling community, and where can she find other parents and other children just like them so they can have the fun, playful experience in their early years. So we will, without further ado, jump into our interview with Becky Brown.
Hi, Becky. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. This is really exciting to be here.
Yeah, in full transparency, we're recording this again because we had like an audio flub. So if you hear us being kind of silly, that's why. But we're so excited to have you back again. So why don't let's go into it. Let's get to your family. Tell us a little bit about yourselves and why y'all decided to start homeschooling.
Yeah, so we live in Washington with my husband, who is a scientist, and he has a hybrid schedule. And my daughter, who is 4.5 and just finished her preschool year or a preschool year. And my son just finished his kindergarten year. He is 6.5.
What drew you all to homeschooling?
Yeah, it was kind of a not expected journey that we've started on. My son had a We tried to do preschool in an effort to like prepare him for kindergarten drop off and going to school for 6 hours a day. And preschool did not go well.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have 10 years of preschool experience. And so I know how it can go. And I'm not sure if we just found a teacher that we didn't jive with or what, or if it just was not the right fit for him. And I'm actually really grateful that it wasn't the right fit for him, because it led us on this journey of trying to figure out what is going to be the right fit. And homeschool has been amazing. It's been fantastic for our family, and it's been just fantastic for him as well. I'm grateful.
So how did you start? Like you decide you weren't intending to homeschool. We hear this from so many families, right? They're not intending to homeschool, and then all of a sudden they're like,
Yeah.
and we're doing this thing.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
so where did you start with your research? How did you approach it? Did you know about homeschooling before you started?
I did know about homeschooling before we started. I was homeschooled for a couple of years, early elementary. My cousins were homeschooled for their entire school career until college. And so it was definitely on my radar. But I just never expected to do it for me and my family. I started my research for homeschooling on Facebook, actually. I started joining a bunch of different homeschool groups and just kind of looking at posts and seeing who's done what and what's worked and what people like. And then I actually stumbled upon your podcast and was so grateful to stumble upon your podcast and listen to it. I totally binged it. I absolutely binged it. It was fantastic. It gave me so much information, and the information from the first year homeschool interviews was by far the most helpful. So that's why I reached out. Your last pitch to first year homeschoolers was definitely inspiring, and I was like, okay, I'll reach out. So I'm glad I did, because those interviews were so helpful for me getting started and realizing how many different ways that you can do it. So that's kind of where I got to that point.
So you did some research, you figured out what some other first year homeschoolers are doing. So how did you decide to approach your son's first year? What after all that research, kind of what did you come up with as the way you wanted to go forward?
It took some time for my husband to get on board with the homeschooling idea. He had a very like typical public school journey, has really fond memories of the whole process. Um, it's fun to talk to his mom about it, because it's sometimes different answers. But like he wanted that for our son. And so after a whole lot of research and like figuring out, hey, how can we get the positives from that public school experience to work for our son and where he's at, after lots of discussion about that and what homeschooling could look like, he was completely on board with trying it. And has since been like, this is great. So he's absolutely on board now. He was on board within the first couple months. So that was great. But yeah, and it was really good to just try it and see if we liked it. We knew that public school was there, or other options were there if homeschooling full time did not work for us. And so there was no risk in trying it. And that was really good.
Well, and that's something we always tell people, especially with the early learners, that it's low risk, and you can just go in. There's always, as Ariel always says, the public schools are always there, and private schools are always an option if that meets your
Totally.
budget. So those things are always there. So it's really cool to just try it. And I'm glad you had that great experience. What was it like for you selecting curriculum and things like that? Those are obviously the big questions. Oh, we're going to do this thing, but what is the thing? What? How did you
Yeah.
find what worked best for you, and how did you implement that?
Yeah, great question. So listening to your podcast really helped for finding curriculum and hearing what other early learners were using. I stumbled upon Explode the Code
Mhm.
fairly early on, and just loved how black and white and very cut and dry it is. And it
Mhm.
really, really works for my son.
Mhm.
Um, he would blitz through multiple pages of that, no problem. And it was nice because he could do it mostly independently. And so that worked out really well. But the curriculum research was extensive. The Kathy Duffy
Reviews.
Yeah, the Kathy
Kathy
Duffy.
Duffy reviews.
Yeah, that one. That book was so helpful for figuring out what style would work the best for my son. And then again, low risk, because if it didn't
Mhm.
work, there's always another one to try.
Yeah.
So that worked out well, but there's the options for curriculum out there are completely overwhelming.
Yeah.
There are so many. There are so many, and it's such a guess on which one's going to work, especially if I haven't done a whole lot of homeschool before or teaching before. And so, um, and I didn't exactly know my son's learning style and
Mhm.
was really lucky to stumble upon one that fit him really well.
Well, Explode the Code's a great one to start with. We
Yeah.
often recommend that because
Mhm.
it's so low cost that if it doesn't work
Mhm.
out, you can be like, well, that
Yeah,
was
just chuck it.
$16. I'll get another. Try something else. So I'm really curious to know about what this transition was like for your son, right? You said that preschool wasn't really working and you're coming into homeschool. Was he excited? What was his like, mental state? Because obviously he was not enjoying preschool. Was he associating not enjoying preschool with not enjoying learning? Or like what was that transition like for him?
Yeah, so we actually stopped the preschool with after 3 weeks. So it was a really short preschool experience. And it was one day a week. So it was a really, really short preschool experience. And after about 3 months of everyone saying, "Oh, are you so excited to go to kindergarten?" and him just completely clamming up,
Mm.
that was how we realized that public school was not going to work for him and that we were going to need to move on with something different. Um, so he was super excited when I said, "Hey, do you want to try this? I'll be your teacher. We'll do school at home," which is not actually school at home because it's homeschool.
Mhm.
And there's such a huge difference in that. Um, but he was completely and totally on board, so ecstatic. And then I told him that, if you want to talk to other people about we're going to try homeschool for kindergarten, you can, or if you want to just say, "Yep, I'm doing kindergarten next year," that's fine too. So it gave him the freedom to choose, and he's a pretty precocious little guy, and so he was very comfortable saying, "Oh, I'm going to homeschool next year," or saying, "Yep," when depending on who asked.
Mhm.
It was
So
good.
you have this, early childhood education background. I'm really
Mhm.
curious to know about how that informed how you approached with your son, how you approached educating your son, and how it was like different. I would imagine like, hey, I know what I'm doing here, but maybe with your own kiddo, things, it's always different. You're one on one, and it's this different dynamic. What was that like for you?
It was definitely a transition. It helped that he was so excited to start. He was so excited to start actually in May, and so we started in May, and I was like, "But can we wait till September?" He was like, "No, we're starting now." So he was super jazzed. We had done some plain preschool prior, and so which I so highly recommend. That was amazing, but we did it very, very casually. So I don't really consider that homeschooling for us with the way that we used it. I used it as I'm feeding the baby now. Here, have an activity, um, which worked out really well too. So there's so many ways to use that wonderful curriculum. But so he was pretty used to me being like, "Hey, let's do the science experiment," because we did tons of science over the last 6 years, 5 years. And so he actually took to it just fine. He was excited to learn. He was excited to try new stuff. He was excited to um, sit down and, well, he wasn't always excited to sit down and do book work. That's very, very true. Um, I finally got him to, I finally realized that I had to kind of strongly encourage that he sit down with me, and I would tell him, "Let's do 15 minutes. After
Mhm.
15 minutes, or if you finish the lesson faster, you can be done. If you finish the lesson slower, then it'll be 15 minutes, and you have an end time for when you can get up and go play." And that helped with those days that he was resistant to sit down and actually do homeschool. That helped.
So what did your average day look like? You've got 15 minutes maybe for different subjects, or how did you plan it?
So I use this checklist for him that I made, and he would have however many days he needed to do language arts and math, and we had science in there and art. And he would get to move over the different cards so that he knew exactly which he had to do. So that's how we structured the week with that checklist. For the day to day, we would sit down and do probably 15 minutes. 15 minutes almost always ran into 30 minutes or an hour, because once he actually got into it, he was totally engrossed and having a good time. But we would sit down for about an hour after breakfast. We would move on to something active and do something else. I went stir crazy. And that was the big difference between teaching preschool versus teaching my own kid, is that I had issues sitting longer than an hour without getting up and doing something.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, a lot of times I can't imagine looking back on my earlier education and thinking like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I had to sit there for hours on end.
How did we do that?
I can't do that now. Even as a professional, it's like, oh, is this meeting 50 minutes? Okay, we're out of here.
Yeah, when a meeting goes over an hour at work, we're all starting to like look around. Did somebody bring donuts or
you
what?
start to think about these kids, and you're just like, man, I can't believe they have to sit there for that long. I would just go stir crazy. At work, we're going out for walks and we're going out to lunch and stuff, and it's like you have to do this in order to calm down. So, that was your day.
Absolutely.
But you also had this a younger child with you. How did you balance having a younger one with the older one?
Yeah, thankfully my daughter loves to do art. So I could often either come up with the art project, which again, the preschool background really helped with that, because I have binders and binders of art projects that are easy to pull out. And so she was very content to color or do art. It got to the point about halfway through the school year that she was like, I want my homeschool. So I had to figure out a plan for her. But she started the Getting Ready for the Code series about midway through the year. And so she felt like she had her own homeschool, but she got cranky if I did not sit down with her and do her homeschool with her. But for the most part, she was pretty good about hanging out at the table. She knew it was homeschool time, and the days that she just ran amok, we pivoted and did something different because we could. Yeah, we had that flexibility because of homeschool to just do something different. So thankfully those days were not every day. Otherwise it would have been exciting.
Well, it's really good that you're both your kids like the workbook style of learning. Going forward, are you continuing that, or are you foreseeing that you're going to continue moving in that same direction, or do you what is your vision for this coming year for both of your children?
That's a great question. So I just started planning it like this week. So if you had asked me at the last time we did this, it would have been a totally different answer. But this, so we're going to continue with Explode the Code, and we'll continue with the same math program that we used previously. And then we'll go ahead and add in a science curriculum this year. I researched a whole bunch and found that elemental science, the intro to science, looked really good. It's a 36-week program. Are you familiar with that one?
That one I've heard of. No.
Okay. It looks good. It's secular. It looks good. I'm excited to try it out. Because last year I felt like we didn't have enough structure with our science curriculum. Because we just did experiments the entire time and watched the mystery science videos and called it good, which for kindergarten it was enough, but for first grade I'm like, let's do more. So have a little more structure with that. So that's going to be extremely hands-on, and I'm excited for that. And then we'll add in some handwriting here and there. Explode the Code has so much handwriting in it already, though, that I hesitate to add too much there. And then we are adding in a co-op this year. We're going to go and find more community and make some new friends. Our kids were really missing that towards the last part of last year. And we started up T-ball, and that helped, but it won't be enough. T-ball won't be enough because it won't be during the fall and winter. So we're going to try to find our group and our core group, some more community. It'll be
So
good.
tell us a little bit more about the co-op. Are you going to go a couple days a week, or do you enroll in specific classes, or does the class, is it the class of the month kind of thing? What's the structure like?
It's actually an outdoor co-op, so it's once a week, and we meet at different parks around the area. And
Cool.
they do kind of a science lesson, and so they'll be getting science through them as well, which is awesome. Can never have enough science.
No.
So that'll be good. And then it's like a story time, learning time, or short learning time, and then some playtime with kids, which is one of the main things I was really looking for. So I'm excited to see how it goes.
Yeah, that sounds really
good
fun.
to try out. Yeah, I think so. Hope so.
Layering in that socialization as kind of finding that missing piece. I think it's going to add a lot of enrichment. I know that's something that we've seen, adding that socialization element, having friends and play dates. All of a sudden, the schedule gets really busy real fast. It's a lot of fun to see that when it finally starts to happen. So let's talk a little bit about like your homeschool space. How do you homeschool? What does it look like? Is it a kitchen table? Do you have a room? How do you manage your materials, and where do you do it?
So I have very few materials out because I haven't needed to have as many materials out, and I know that's probably going to change as we continue through, but right now we homeschool. You're nodding.
Build the bookcases now is all I'm saying. Plan where they're gonna go because you're gonna need them. That's all I'm saying.
We're pro organizing the clutter.
Yeah, lots of bookcases.
That's great. I believe it. Yeah, the science curriculum has multiple spines, and I'm like, oh boy, here we go.
Here we go.
But it'll be an adventure. So we mainly homeschool in our dining room, which has been working really well. And we have a couple of like folders or not folders, but little tubs around the corner in our dining room. And then I have an extra closet of bare stuff in another room. So we're doing that for now, but we'll see as it changes this year. This year we have an island. We just finished a kitchen remodel, so we actually have an island in our kitchen. So I imagine we'll be there a lot too. Cool. But last year we mainly did it in the dining room. Yeah, it was good.
That's awesome. Do you have any things that are in your homeschool that you can't live without? Crates, colored pencils, things of that nature?
So the thing that I really couldn't live without is the library. We get all of our books from the library, and it is such a great resource. And I love being able to put holds on because I have a hard time getting my kids out of the library because they run amok a little bit. Yeah, as sometimes kids do. The checklist that I use for my son's just organizing his week and having him know exactly what is to be expected throughout the week is invaluable. I also use these LCD tablets that I can write on, and then I just push a button to erase them.
Yeah, we have those too. They're great.
Oh, they're so great. They're so convenient. And I like them so much more than whiteboard or chalkboard because I can write with my finger.
Yep.
And then I just push a button to erase it. So it's such a time saver. I also use a visual timer that has been really helpful. I can set it for when he is struggling to sit down to homeschool, so he knows exactly how long he has to sit there until he can do something else, or how long he can race the timer, either one.
Okay. So. Is it like a workout timer, like a larger one? I've seen these for like the CrossFit type of people have these big digital timers, or is it kind of smaller?
It's smaller. It's like it's not an egg timer, but it's one of those like it's like 3x3.
Okay, like a
very
cooking
small
timer, almost like a little cooking. Oh, okay, gotcha.
Totally.
Okay.
And it you can pick what color you want it to be, and the color moves away as the time goes down. It's really cool, actually.
Okay, that's really cool.
Yeah, it's very visual. Like, oh, I have a quarter left. Now I have a half of it left, or less of it left.
That's nice for before they're ready to tell time. They can't really conceptualize like how many minutes 15 really is.
Yeah,
totally. It also is digital or analog, so it like you can see the line moving.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
I mean, it's very visual. So he can glance up and go, "Oh, I got a lot of green space left. Shoot,"
Okay.
or "I have plenty of time," or whatever. So
Ooh, we're gonna have to look
it's
this
been
up
helpful.
and put it in the
absolutely.
show notes. Yeah.
Well, and I remember us the first time we talked, talking a lot about the checklists and stuff. Now
Yeah.
that's for the homeschool. Do you do any
Mhm.
like personal responsibility elements in there, like cleaning the bed, taking out dishes, and things of that nature?
We just started, you remember in like elementary school and the teacher would give out like jobs for the week.
Mhm.
And I was the kid that loves the jobs, but I didn't view them as chores. I viewed them as responsibilities that I was being entrusted to do. So that for me was kind of the key switch of how to approach it with my kids of like, these aren't your chores, these are your responsibilities that I'm entrusting you with. So now we have the zookeeper who helps feed the dogs. We have the suds buster who helps with the dishes and gathering dishes around the house. We have our personal assistant who helps Dad and I with stuff. Neither one of the kids likes to be that one. I don't know why, but they don't. They don't like my random, "Hey, can you go do this for me?" options. We have the gardener who does all the watering of plants.
Okay.
We have a few others. We have the energy specialist who helps with turning off lights and making sure tablets are charged. It's a very important job.
Like this is like these are like roles in a cooperative game.
Right? Totally.
Yes. It's like everyone has their role, right?
Pandemic.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm the quarantine specialist.
Oh no. Oh no, that took a turn.
Yeah. Well, you know what I mean.
I totally
It was
know.
cool before 2020, and now it's like,
Yes.
no, we can't play that game anymore. But there's a fire rescue one, and there's different ones in that. There's a bunch of co-op.
There's alternatives.
Oh, Forbidden Island, you could be the pilot.
You can be the pilot.
The pilot, yeah,
There we
or the
go.
engineer.
Oh yeah. We have an adventure planner too. So yeah. So now on Monday mornings when I have the cards all laid out, because I lay them all face down so that they can go and pick up which ones. And they've cracked my code and they started sorting through to pick out their favorites. And so
they get to claim their job at the beginning of the week.
Yeah. On Monday they get to claim them. So whoever gets there first has been zookeeper a lot. Got to mix it up.
I like that.
No, I remember there was the Daniel Tiger episode where he was the line leader and he didn't want to be the line, but then he
right.
Yeah,
well, he
I
wanted to be the
Right,
line leader,
but he had to
and
do
he was the
lunches.
lunch specialist
That's right.
instead.
That's right.
That was
That's
a book
right.
that we had to read ad nauseum for our younger.
Oh man, there are worse books out there.
So, what do you do as a stay-at-home parent, homeschooling? What do you do to get away? What do you do to lighten the load on yourself? Is there anything specific that you have a side job, some activity you like to do? Obviously, coaching t-ball is one thing you like to do.
Yeah, it is. I really enjoy it actually. So there's that, but I also have a cottage kitchen license and I'm a home baker.
That's
So
awesome.
I make cupcakes and cakes. So I do that part-time. And that's kind of my side gig that is really fun actually. So yeah.
That's
and
awesome.
delicious.
And delicious.
I think so.
How do you balance that? Do you tend to do that when they're sleeping, or do you get some handoff with the spouse on that?
Yes and yes. I do it both ways. So we have family nearby also that will sometimes take the kids for a few hours while I bake a batch of cupcakes. But otherwise I bake at nighttime after the kids go to bed. And if I have a really big order, my husband will take them out of the house so that I can get all the baking done. So he's very, very supportive in that way, and actually in every way. He's very supportive. So it's great.
No, I'm very pro on the subreddit for stay-at-home dads. We all talk about it on Reddit about having some side thing that isn't related to the children, because it is, it's like I'm with children all the time, and sometimes I just need to get away. And sports is a good one, but the problem is the sports is because I'm coaching kids. I'm coaching 12 of these kids. It makes it worse a little bit in some respect, but having something to do on the side, I think, is a big thing. So from me and you to all the other people listening, make sure you get a hobby. Yeah, start
Yeah.
whittle some wood in the backyard or
Something
something.
just for yourself. Yeah. I
Just,
think you have to.
yeah, it's so important. It's so important to get that brain break too, because it's like,
Mhm.
oh yeah, I'm a human too. I'm a person too. It's so important. Um, I would go a little crazy if I didn't have something else.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's true. As much as we love it, it's great to have something for ourselves. Well, I think this has been really interesting. But I want to get your parting thoughts about, those families who were maybe like you, didn't intend to homeschool,
Mhm.
and they're coming here and they're listening to the first year homeschooler interviews and going like, how do we crack the code? What advice would you give to them if as they're looking to approach a new homeschooling journey?
Mhm.
I would definitely say try it first of all. But you know your kid the best, and there's always public school as an option, as a backup option. And so if you're thinking in your gut that this might be a good opportunity and it might be a good fit for your family, try it. There's no harm in trying it. You might like it, so you
Mhm.
might just love it. Who knows?
I
Yeah.
absolutely agree. I think those are perfect words to carry on and help people
Yeah.
move forward. So thank you so much for
Yeah.
being on for round 2.
Yes, thank you. We
You're
so
welcome.
appreciate
To all the
you.
people listening who
No
are thinking
problem.
about coming on the show, it is such an enjoyable experience that Becky even wanted to come back.
Second time. You got
Yeah,
it.
so when we make the call, just remember it's not that bad. We
Nah, it's
appreciate you
fun.
coming back on. I know it's a pain in the butt to have to do something the same twice. We've had to do a number of podcasts 2 times, and we really appreciate it. Thank you
Oh,
so much.
Thank you.
happy to. Happy to. Thanks for having me. This is really fun.
Thanks so much for joining us today and making us a part of your homeschool journey. Please engage with us on social media. Join our Homeschool Together podcast group on Facebook and find us at Homeschool Together Podcast on Instagram. We'd love to hear your feedback, questions, and recommendations. Until next time.
Happy homeschooling!